This is probably my second favorite video to make all year. I love making state of the collection videos, but I also make a video where I talk about my favorite watches of the year. This is a video where I talk about my least favorite watches of the year. I'm doing this a little bit different. I'm throwing in a couple of watches that you guys also thought were terrible, and I judged that through the comments in the videos that I made for these watches. There are a few watches to talk about, so let's immediately get into my number one pick. For this video, I try and be as honest with myself as possible. So when I see a watch during the year, I take note of it if I really do not like it. And Tag Heuer came out with a watch this year that I thought was absolutely terrible. I saw a lot of positive articles and coverage of this watch, specifically on places like Instagram and TikTok, and one very big news article that was written on a very popular website, especially popular with watches, of course, and I could not disagree more with what they were saying. I think that this is just an ugly watch. They took something that could be a good-looking watch with a beautiful traditional moon phase. They did something very different with it, but it doesn't work. And I just don't think this is a good-looking watch. I think they did a terrible job. I don't care what the price is, what the movement is. This is terrible. You guys know I absolutely love Timex. In fact, on my best watches of 2025 video, I think I picked a number of Timex. There was at least 3 Timex that I included in that video. There is one that I have to include in this video. It is the Timex Q Continental. I was really disappointed when I saw this watch. When Tissot tried to do it with the PRX, I don't think it worked. And when they did it with the Timex, specifically the Continental, which is a really cool watch, they put a GMT, it was very affordable, a quartz watch, of course, but they tried to make this a digital watch, and I think it just doesn't work. I have a problem with a round case and a square display or a rectangular display. I've always had that problem, but for some reason, these watches look cheap. And I think Casio really is the only one that could pull this off and make it look good. So when Timex went ahead and made one of these, it just didn't work for me. Even though these only cost like $130, they're on sale all the time. I would imagine they're on sale for a specific reason. All the other watches that they've been making recently sell out pretty quickly or don't go on sale. This one is immediately on sale. That should tell you something. It's 39 millimeters. They made it in gold and in stainless steel. Doesn't really matter. I'm not a huge fan of this watch, unfortunately. And like I said, I tend to love what Timex have been doing lately. This one was a miss. The next watch that I'm going to talk about is really an entire brand. I know I will catch a lot of heat for saying this, but Denison. Denison is a brand that I just don't understand. I was kind of curious about the brand. I saw people, a lot of people, especially again on Instagram and TikTok, talking about these watches. And when I finally got one hands-on, I was blown away at how cheap it felt. They put stone dials on them, not enough stone because these watches feel extremely light and extremely cheap in hand. And there's a big problem to these watches, the price. The price is around $700, starting at $700 and going up to $1,000 for quartz watches. These are fashion watches. And for one reason or another, people are flocking to this brand and they are getting a lot of positive reviews on places like Instagram and TikTok. I think it's because the original designer of this watch worked at Audemars Piguet and he designed the offshore, so the Royal Oak offshore. A watch that isn't very celebrated by the same people who are celebrating this watch, but that's okay. I'm not sure why this is getting so much attention. These watches are getting so much attention. I'd like to see more of them in hand. Maybe it's just me, but from what I have seen and what I have felt, these are very cheap. And for the price of $700 to $1,000, these make no sense to me. The next watch on this list is a watch that I absolutely hated. This got a lot of positive reviews, again, on TikTok and Instagram and of course, Hodinkee. However, this is a 45 millimeter Movado. that is in a tank shape. So it looks like a Cartier Santos. That's because it's basically an homage to the Cartier Santos. It costs $1,700 and it has an over 45 millimeter case. The same people who were praising it complain that the Cartier Santos XL at around 39 millimeters is way too big. But somehow the 45.3 millimeter version, which is essentially this, is okay. I don't know how that makes sense in any way. It's just a copy of the Cartier Santos. I don't think it looks good. I think they did a really poor job at making this somewhat original. I think it's enormous and unwearable. Even for me, someone who wears large watches, a 45 millimeter tank watch, something that's larger than 45 millimeters, will wear enormous. I really don't like this watch. And again, I have no idea why I got so much positive feedback, but there you go. The next watch on this list is a watch that I kind of get, but I don't love. It's the Seiko Astronaut Reissue. The vintage versions actually go for a lot of money. Again, the same problem that I have with digital watches that come with a bracelet in stainless steel. I don't like the shape of the case. Even though they put an 8-sided bezel on this and an 8-sided screen, it still doesn't really work because it looks like a rectangular screen either way, and it looks like a circular bezel either way. So for me, this watch also didn't work. It's also kind of expensive, but they're already selling at a discount. Seiko reissued this, and I think this was a good move for them. I think that they have a lot of watches like this in their archive that they can reissue, and there are people out there who like this. This is a personal aesthetic preference, and that's the reason why I don't like this, and that's the reason why I didn't like that Timex that I was talking about earlier, and of course the PRX digital version that they came out with. All three of these watches aren't for me. They might be for you. This is just my personal dislike. Well, the next few watches that I'm going to talk about, I think a lot of people will disagree with me down in the comments. In fact, I recently said something bad about a recent release from Louis Erard, which was their frog dials that they did in collaboration with Konstantin Chaikin. And I just thought these were pretty ugly watches, and a lot of people disagreed with me down in the comment section. And then just a few weeks later, they came out with a watch that's in the $27,000 range. It's in collaboration with the brand GMT. I'm not too familiar with them. I'm not sure why this is a collaboration, but it's inspired by Botticelli's Birth of Venus. If you're familiar with this painting, it's a beautiful painting. However, they put this on a dial, and the breasts, the nipple, I can't even believe I'm saying breasts and nipples in a watch review, but it's not a watch review, a top 10 video, but the nipples are the hour and minutes. And they show it in every picture where the nipples are conveniently placed at the bottom of those dials, but what happens when the nipples aren't at the bottom of the dial? I just think this is a silly watch. And again, it's a $30,000 silly watch that isn't, it's so confusing. I just don't know what to say about it. I don't like it. And that's it. Also, Konstantin Chaikin came out with another watch this year, another collaboration with Barons. I think he comes out with a lot of collaborations because he's a Russian watch designer, watchmaker. And of course, he's not able to sell his watches directly in the United States. So he's doing all these collaborations with these other brands to get his watches into the country. I get that. But this Barons, this Ace of Hearts, was one of the ugliest watches I have ever seen, period. And for those of you out there who are going to argue with me in the comment section, aesthetically, this is not a good looking watch. You could argue with me about the Frog watch. You could argue with me about the GMT collaboration on the Venus. But I don't think anybody can argue that this was aesthetically an ugly watch, that Ace of Hearts. Horrible. The next watch on this list is a watch that I almost burst out loud laughing when I saw the price. This was a reissue from Louis Vuitton. They came out with their Monterey. So the Monterey was their first watch they came out with. It was basically a unicorn watch, and they came out with this in a limited edition that has that pebble case. It's actually a really good looking watch. I actually like this watch. I like the vintage versions that sell for around, well, they were selling for a lot less recently, but they are going up in price. I really like them, but whatever reason, they reissued this. It's a limited edition of like 130 or something like that, and it's $53,000 because it's a gold pebble-shaped watch that's in around 38 or 39 millimeters. $53,000. You're not getting $53,000 worth of gold. You're just paying $53,000 to get, what, a watch that originally sold for about $5,000? And if it was gold back then, it would have sold for maybe 20. So I don't know or understand the pricing here, $53,000. I made a video about this not that long ago, but this was one of the most egregious examples of overpricing. This isn't a bad watch. It's actually a pretty good looking watch, but the price is ridiculous. So talking about watches I actually like, this watch is a watch that I really do like. I love the bones of this watch that we're about to talk about. I love the aesthetic of this watch. However, it has one fatal flaw, and it's not only the price, because the price does come into play here. This is a new Seiko LX that was very recently released, and immediately I was like, this is an awesome watch. I dug into the details and I was immediately disappointed. This is the Seiko Prospex LX GMT US Special Edition. So this is a US Special Edition, the SNR 058. It's exactly what you would expect from an LX. It has a spring drive movement, power reserve on the dial. You're getting a very beautiful textured dial on here. You're getting a gold bezel and a gold crown. That is the problem that I have with this watch. Those elements are not made out of gold. They are gold plated. This is a titanium watch. I get it. They should not be making these in plated gold when you are charging almost $7,000 for the watch. Yes, it gets a spring drive movement, but this is a Seiko, and the fact that you cannot put a little bit of gold on the bezel and on the crown, I think you should not put any gold tone on a $7,000 watch that isn't actually gold. And I was immediately disappointed when I saw it. I thought this would be an incredible watch, and it went from being incredible to being a terrible watch, and that's why I put it on this list. The next three watches I'm going to talk about are watches that got the most hate in the comment section on videos that I made here on my YouTube channel. The first two watches that I'll talk about are from the same brand. They are both from Tissot. Tissot came out with some new PRXs, one in Damascus steel, which I really liked, and then one in titanium. I could not tell you how many negative comments that video got. And it seems like there is some sort of hatred going towards the PRX recently, and I really genuinely don't understand that. I actually like that Damascus steel version. I think they're on the more expensive side, especially considering that you can get way better watches from micro brands now, as micro brands have really caught up and are starting to use movements that compete with the Powermatic 80, and they are using materials like Damascus steel and titanium. Not only that, they're using grade 5 titanium, because this was a grade 2 titanium PRX that they came out with. There's a lot more competition out there, and you could definitely get a better watch for the money when compared to these two watches. However, I genuinely don't think that these Tissots are all that bad, but it's not what I was saying about these watches. It was what you guys were saying about them, and you definitely did not like them. Another watch that I was kind of excited about this year was the new Omega Planet Ocean. They came out with a slimmer, smaller Planet Ocean with slightly less water resistance, but it also got rid of that hated helium escape. So there was a lot that they did to this watch to make some really big upgrades or downgrades in certain people's eyes, and a lot of people did not like this change. They like the big, thick watch that the Planet Ocean was in the past. A very big, diveable tool watch. And I get it. I actually own the original Planet Ocean. I sold mine to buy a smaller Seamaster, but I did that because I have a lot of large watches in my collection. I don't have many small watches in my collection, and I wanted to downsize one of my watches. I still wanted an Omega, so I bought a smaller Omega Seamaster versus the larger Planet Ocean. I love that Planet Ocean. I think it's a great watch, and I think that the new one is also a great watch. I think that Omega will come out with larger versions of this watch. However, with that being said, a lot of people were very unhappy with these watches, and with good reason. If you like a big chunky diver, something that feels like a tool watch on your wrist, these are going to feel less so, I would imagine. When I put a video up on Instagram, I did get a lot of negative comments on there, and I also made one on my YouTube channel, which got a lot of negative comments as well. So that's really it. Anyway, guys, that is my list. The holiday season is upon us. If you are celebrating any holidays, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, all of those good things. Happy New Year. I'm going to be releasing videos through the new year, so definitely stay tuned. Lots of reviews coming out and lots of videos like this, so definitely stay tuned, and don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that bell icon. It is super helpful for the channel, and I very much appreciate it. Thank you guys. Thank you for logging on. Thank you for watching this video. I will catch you guys in the next video.